The entire narrative just changed. For years and years now, Winnipeg Jets fans have had to suffer in annoyance as teams around the league and fans joke and mock that nobody wants to play in Winnipeg. This narrative is now being challenged as a bunch of key players have now been speaking out about how much they love playing in Winnipeg, why they consider it home, and how much they love playing for the Jets. We're going to dive into this, challenge this narrative, and see if it really is true or not. But before we do so, I couldn't help but notice it looks like 85.1% of people watching the videos here on Jets Digest have not subscribed to the channel. I'd highly suggest you throw a subscription. We're going to be talking Jets all throughout the offseason, and that's the best way to make sure you don't miss a beat. So let's jump into it. Let's jump into the video. First off, we're of course going to talk about Gabriel Valardi. Yes, he re-signed his contract not long ago. 6-year deal, a long-term deal for $7.5 million. We already talked about him and why this contract is phenomenal for the Winnipeg Jets. If you missed that video, I'd highly suggest you go check that out because we're not going to be diving into Gabe Valardi himself here, but rather his opinion on the city of Winnipeg. And after he signed this deal, he did a presser and had this to say. We're going to run a clip here where he discusses living in Winnipeg.
I've been here 2 years now, and I love it in Winnipeg. I think, the opportunity for us to win in our window here of 4 or 5 years is something I'm very excited about, and I want to be a part of. And I love Winnipeg. It's a great spot. It feels like home to me, and the fans, the team, the organization, everybody has welcomed me to Winnipeg since I've been there, and it's been great. So made a pretty easy decision for me.
It feels like home to me. These are the specific words spoken by Gabriel Valardi when discussing living in Winnipeg and playing for the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, he cites the fact that the team is currently in an opportunity window to potentially go out there and get a cup, and he obviously wants to be a part of that. But this is also a player who has previously played for teams like the LA Kings, where, you do get a much nicer lifestyle. When you think about living in LA versus Winnipeg, I don't think I need to paint too big of a picture as to the differences in, the type of lifestyle that you would have. But he mentions that Winnipeg really feels like a great place to be. In another clip, he even mentions the fact that the perception that Winnipeg gets from other players around the league is not the reality of it. When you come into town, you're used to playing in LA, and you come in for a road trip. You're playing late, in Winnipeg. All you get to do is see the cold, dark winter, and the downtown area, which unfortunately is not the most lively area of Winnipeg. But once you get out of that downtown bubble, he even mentions places like River Heights, Tuxedo, getting to go out for dinner and exploring the cuisine that Winnipeg has to offer. He says that this place has a lot of character, and he really, really enjoys it here. It reminds him of home. He grew up in Kingston, Ontario, so fairly, similar weather-wise, cold Canadian winters, but that is something that does not affect him. We can even take a look at another player that was included in that deal. We're, of course, going to talk about Alex Aofalo, a player who, again, played for the LA Kings, got to see and live an LA lifestyle, gets shipped over to Winnipeg, and after coming here, decides he loves it so much to the point where he's going to re-sign here as well on a pretty team-friendly deal. I can tell you this myself. I know people who have gone hunting with Alex Aofalo recently. He's a guy who loves the outdoors, and he loves being able to live that kind of low-key life here. Probably similar to, how Connor Hellebuyck loves the fact that Winnipeg offers him the opportunity to go out and go fishing at a bunch of different places that are nearby. Alex Aofalo really, really enjoys his time with the team here. We even have a quote coming from him I can bring up here on the screen. He goes, "It's such a great team. I don't want to go anywhere else. I was going to accept under what I was worth or whatever it was." So very clearly, this player absolutely loves it in Winnipeg, and it fits his lifestyle perfectly. And of course, one big thing for both of these players, they both cite the fact that there is an opportunity to win here. And that's what I want to point out. Ever since the Winnipeg Jets became a team that, was a contender at one point, the first time they became a contender, of course, we're going to look back to 2018. Who did they bring in that year? They brought in Paul Stastny, a player who waived his no-move clause to come to Winnipeg. Unfortunately, didn't get it done here, but loved his time here so much that later on, he came back and re-signed with the Winnipeg Jets. He's cited the city as, a great place to grow with his family, a great tight-knit community. He even mentioned, I believe, if you can find it, I can't find it here, but I know I've seen this quote where he mentions that waiving his no-move clause was the best thing he's ever done in his career. And that, getting to play with certain players, I would imagine, if we're talking 2018, he's talking about like Nikolai Ehlers, Patrick Laine, and of course the rest of the Winnipeg Jets, reinvigorated his career and got him to, want to go out there and really compete again. And he's a player who's still in the league at this point. I believe he's still signed with Carolina. But regardless, we're seeing this trend of players who come to Winnipeg and love it here. And of course, we can talk about Manitoba's own homecoming king making his return to the NHL with the Winnipeg Jets, 3-time Stanley Cup winner, multiple gold medalist, Jonathan Taves, who will of course be joining the Winnipeg Jets the following season. Here in this press conference that he had with Cheveldayoff, Scott Arniel, and of course the Winnipeg Jets media, he specifically cited, memories of, going to Winnipeg Jets 1.0 games at the Winnipeg Arena as one thing that brought him here. But more specifically, it was the fact that when he was out of the league, when he was just living here in Winnipeg, seeing the way that this city gets around the Winnipeg Jets, especially during playoffs, the passion that these fans have. He specifically mentions the Winnipeg whiteout as one of the sources of giving him the bug to want to be competitive again and get himself in shape and be able to play for this team. It's very clearly, there's one clear common thing between all of these things, and that is competitiveness. When we talk about changing this narrative, the biggest thing that Winnipeg can do, because unfortunately people are always going to have the same notions about Winnipeg. There's people who are always going to be making jokes, does Winnipeg even have an airport? That whole thing. Of course we do. Very dumb thing. Not the point. It's competitiveness. And so when you look at cities, I just want to talk about playing in one city versus another. What's the big difference between playing in Winnipeg and Edmonton? Because Edmonton did not have any issue getting free agents to come there. We can think back to Milan Lucic, Zach Hyman. What did these players have in common? Why did they go to Edmonton? It's Connor McDavid. It's because Connor McDavid is an everlasting source of potential to win a cup. And that's the thing that Winnipeg was lacking for a while. And when we see this, we see that this narrative is changing. The source of it is the fact that Winnipeg is a competitive team. You look back at Paul Stastny waving his move. He wants to come here and play and go for a cup. You look at Gabe Valardi mentioning the fact that he wants to be a part of this window. Alex Aofalo signing a team-friendly deal. Like, all of these things have in common the fact that people are getting a better view of Winnipeg. Players are wanting to play here when the team's good. So, going forward, I know that this is not a blanket statement. I think Winnipeg will always have its challenges, but I think that it's a little lazy to just say that players don't want to play in Winnipeg and use that as an excuse for why, this thing can't happen or that thing can't happen. Of course, it will still affect the Winnipeg Jets going forward. Kevin Cheveldayoff will have to get creative. We can see that with this past trade line. He had a trade lined up for Brock Nelson, which unfortunately fell through because he didn't want to waive his no move. Well, look at that. You got knocked out in the first round there, buddy. Sorry to you. You went to play for the wrong team. Anyways, regardless though, we're seeing this narrative change and people are wanting to play in Winnipeg. And this is such a fantastic thing to see as a fan. And as someone who, lives here and loves this city so gosh darn much, it's great to see Winnipeg getting its dues. And we're going to end off this video on a great note. One final thing. This is in regards to Dylan Samberg, of course, who has not signed his deal yet, and is headed towards arbitration. Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast, he said, I heard in Samberg's case in particular, he was pretty happy and content to sign here long term. So, we haven't gotten the Samberg deal in yet, but I would expect it to get done before arbitration. I was a little bit worried that if this guy wanted out, he could force his way out. But it seems like many other players who play in Winnipeg, they enjoy it here. They like playing for a good team. And this city is not as bad as everyone out to be. Alas, that's going to be it for me here today. If you like this video, throw a like on it. Let me know what you think. Is this always going to be an issue that Winnipeg has to deal with? Throw a comment down there. Do you see this really changing in the foreseeable future? But regardless, have yourself a wonderful summer. I'll be here on Jets Digest breaking it all down. Peace.